You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Athan Hristodulu.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Athan Hristodulu. It's October 31st, 2021. Week 8 game day is upon us. We got 14 games going on between today and tomorrow night's Monday night game, so a lot to talk about with you guys. As always, if you enjoy what we're doing here, like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you have not seen what these videos are about, we're doing our picks for the week. I'm going through each and every single game. I'll pick my winners, kind of go a little bit into detail as to why, and then at the end, we'll take a quick look at everyone that we've decided on. Now, there's a handful of games that I don't even actually have winners picked for on here, and I literally wrote in the notes that I have for them to pick on the spot during the show as I record. So I think there's like 3 or 4 games that I'm literally going to decide the winner as I speak to you guys here. So it should be pretty interesting to see what I spit out. So up at the top of the screen, you'll see as I go through, the picks will kind of go across the screen. It'll go left to right as you're watching. My current record right now in the season, 66-42, so not too bad. Had a couple of bad weeks, but so far, so good. I feel like week in and week out, we have maybe 3, 4, 5 games max wrong, aside from a couple of poor weeks. But outside of that, let's talk about game number 1. The first one that I have on my list here, again, we're doing 14 of these because I am doing the Monday night game as well. We have Carolina at Atlanta. So the Panthers taking on the Falcons. This game, on paper, matches up pretty well, but I don't necessarily know if the paper matchup matches the actual quality of football that we've seen on the field. Carolina's defense has been really good, but they really just have not been getting much help from their offense. I'm really starting to get concerned with where they are, and it seems like, with the benching of Sam Darnold last week, it seems like they are as well over there in the Panthers coaching staff. PJ Walker came in, he took over for Sam Darnold, and honestly, I was kind of excited to see that because if you guys watched the XFL, he got to play a little bit out there, and it was kind of exciting to see him come in because I really wanted to see what he got with his shot as a Panthers quarterback, but it seems like just kind of getting thrown into the fire. It did not really work out for him well. I do want to stress, though, the wide receivers have not really been helping out the quarterback situation, regardless of who was in there. A lot of drops, and some unexpected ones as well. You can understand like a drop here and there, but some of these, DJ Moore is the wide receiver room has really not helped the quarterback situation without getting into too much detail here and spending too much time discussing it. I do want to highlight the defense, though. They have been excellent. That's the big thing that the Panthers have going for them. Yes, they lost 25-3 last week, but ultimately it really just boiled down to because the offense was not moving the football at all. If the Panthers can get some semblance of offense, they do have a fair shot in this game. Meanwhile, as when you look at what the Falcons have been doing, now that they're really starting to involve Kyle Pitts, their rookie tight end, and he's starting to really look like the tight end threat that everyone was expecting of him, the generational type talent going into the draft and why they picked him at number 4. This Atlanta offense is getting scarier and scarier because you don't have to just look at Calvin Ridley and be like, all right, where are your numbers, Ridley? Well, Kyle Pitts, the star that everyone's expecting him to be, starting to shine these last couple of weeks. The defense struggled a little bit against Miami last week, and their defense has been middle of the road, but I do think that this is a good opportunity for the Falcons to kind of take advantage of the struggles the Panthers have been having offensively. Again, like I mentioned, the quarterback situation, the wide receiver situation, the offensive line has honestly not really been doing too great as well. So when I look at the winner for this game, I am going to go with the Atlanta Falcons on this one. I think that they have the best shot just coming out. They have they have the solidified quarterback in Matt Ryan, who's playing really well right now. A couple of star players at the wideout position. Defense is solid, and ultimately it really comes down to the big question mark for the quarterback situation going on in Carolina. It just does not seem to be answered anymore. Sam Darnold seems to be regressing week in and week out, and that's got to be concerning, especially when you see kind of the body of work that PJ Walker just put in last week. I know that Sam Darnold is still the assumed starter there, at least for now, but I don't know if that's going to be the case going forward if we keep getting play like we have been from Darnold. Second game on the list, we're looking at the Miami Dolphins going up against the Buffalo Bills in an AFC East divisional matchup. The way I kind of look at this is a trap game for the Bills. It's a divisional rival against a rival that is also struggling at that. The Bills are top 10 to 5 in just about every major statistical category when you start to really look at the numbers here and kind of go over everything. My hope is that going into this game, they're not looking they're not looking ahead into next week, and they're not kind of looking over this game. It is a divisional rival that's coming into your home. Just don't be looking into next week because you don't expect too much from the Dolphins, is all I really have to say to the Bills here. When you look at what the Dolphins have been doing, they've been really struggling on offense. Tua obviously was gone for a few weeks. He came back last week, and honestly, it just wasn't enough to get it done against the Jaguars. Or not, he came back last week, 2 weeks ago. But he came back, in the last couple of weeks. He's played fairly well. He had a couple of backbreaking interceptions in that the Jaguars game, and kind of like what, in my opinion, ultimately led to the Dolphins losing that. I don't know if I can really buy any real hope for the Dolphins right now. There's just so many rumors going on with the Dolphins going after Watson, and that's got to be a problem for Tua. I feel like, and then the rumors of like the Flores issue just continuing to get worse and worse week in and week out with him losing the locker room. I just don't know if I can really buy what's going on with Miami anymore. I don't know. I'm starting to get more and more concerned week in and week out. Now, if the Dolphins trade for Watson, if that's really what's going on and he is going to be able to play, this could be a totally different story next week. We'll have to see how that whole thing shakes out, but if I'm going to pick a winner between these two, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. They are the more dominant team. They have been killing it so far this year. They've had a tough loss to the Tennessee Titans last week that literally came down to about 4 yards of play, and then obviously that crazy week 1 loss that they had to the Steelers, but Buffalo feels like the very safe pick for me, in my opinion. I'm going to go with them. For the third game that we have on the list here, we are looking at another divisional matchup, and this one is for the AFC North. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield's coming back after having last week off due to his shoulder injury. Obviously, everyone knows the big Case Keenum. He is probably one of the most impressive backups I have ever seen in the NFL. This guy he has traveled to so many different teams, played for so many different places, and you can plug him in and count on him to win you a game when it matters most. They went up against a pretty tough Denver Broncos defense that is not getting much help from their offense, so maybe that kind of helped them out a little bit in that game, but now you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, who coming off a bye week and rattling off a couple of wins after starting out the season 1-3, and also holding a win over those same Buffalo Bills we were just talking about a second ago. This should be a really good matchup between both of these teams. Roethlisberger and a few other people that are dealing with injuries, and the Steelers had a little bit of time to rest. Hopefully that's good for them. As for the Cleveland side of things, they get their quarterback to come back off of his little break he was taking there last week. They still don't have their running backs. Kareem Hunt obviously is out. Nick Chubb is also out. But, the emergence of Dearness Johnson there might be able to mitigate that loss, especially now that, the Steelers defense has to play with Baker Mayfield being on the field, and they have to stay more honest with how many people they're stacking in the box. This is going to be a really good game. I'm excited for it. This was actually one of the games where I don't have a winner picked, and I'm picking on the spot here, and man, I'm gonna go with the Cleveland Browns. I like what they've been doing overall. I like the depth that they have on their team. My biggest concern probably with Pittsburgh is that, yes, they have very good starters and they play really well, but if anyone goes down or pieces get lost, we saw what happened last year with TJ Watt and how much this defense fell off. I like the depth that the Cleveland Browns have more than the Pittsburgh Steelers do. I think that this will be a tight game, but I ultimately do feel like the Cleveland Browns can probably squeak out the win, especially now that Baker Mayfield is back. If he wasn't playing, that would probably completely alter my choice on this one, but I'm going to go with Cleveland. It's going to be a close game. I would say within it's probably going to be about a 1-score game or so. These AFC North games always get real chippy. They're always real close and competitive, especially now with Cleveland playing the way they have been. I like it. Cleveland in a close one. For the next game on the list, we have the San Francisco 49ers, who have been kind of slipping and not playing up to the par that some people were expecting them to play. And then we have a team like the Chicago Bears that it feels like every other week are going into a game without a game plan. I am really starting to get concerned with what's going on over there in Chicago. This offensive line is terrible, and I mean terrible. On top of that, I'm really, really kind of confused as to how Matt Nagy is still the head coach at this point here. I don't know what the heck's going on over there in Chicago. I really hope they sort it out soon, and I think there's going to have to be some personnel changes. Justin Fields is getting eaten alive behind that offensive line, and it's really concerning for his development, and I really think this is only going to hurt him. I wanted to see him play because I wanted him to get action and see how he progresses as a rookie, but honestly, it almost makes sense now why Nagy probably didn't put him in to start, whether he was ready or not earlier in the year, because maybe he knew how bad this team was, and I don't know. But there's a lot of concern going on in Chicago, especially like when you look at the way that they've been whacked by some teams so far. Last week, especially when you see the game they had against the Bucs there. On the other side of things, when you look at the 49ers, defensively, they're good. They're not great. They haven't quite been able to return to that dominant form they had a few years ago. The defensive line is still a threat going up against anyone, and I think going into this game against a Chicago offensive line that has been terrible, this is a really good game for them to really feast on the offensive line. So best of luck to you, Justin Fields. I really hope you are able to keep yourself safe in this one. The QB situation is really curious. I don't know if Trey Lance is going to get any time to play. I don't 100% know what his injury status is or if like how things are going to fare for him going into this one. But Jimmy G has been Jimmy G. He's hurt. He's turning the ball over. Not a really good game in that monsoon thing that they had going on the West Coast last week when they played the Colts last week on Monday, because it's Sunday now. Last week on Monday when they were playing the Colts in that monsoon. He's just continuing to turn the ball over, and if he's not doing that, he's not available. I think it's time that, if Trey Lance is ready, just put him in, let him roll with the team, see how he does. He can only continue to progress from here, and when you look at, like, on the flip side of the other side of the field, you have Justin Fields struggling behind an offensive line that's not really good at all. On the other side of things, you have a better offensive scheme, a better offensive line. I would say better skill positional players on the 49ers offense. It's probably better to let him kind of get loose and just go from there. You're already sitting on a pretty bad record. I don't want to say the season's over for the 49ers, but the NFC is tough this year, and I think that they would be better off just giving Trey Lance the reps and letting him learn as he plays. But as for a winner, this is a tough one here. I do have a name written down on here, and I think I'm going to go with it. I'm going to pick the San Francisco 49ers on this one. It's close. I don't want to say it's a super wide margin. The 49ers have kind of shocked me with just their inability to score, really. I know that they're missing players. Don't get me wrong. Raheem Mostert being gone is probably one of the biggest things that, they're missing a great running back in him. And obviously they've been dealing with quarterback injuries, which is not really going to help your team out. But I do think the 49ers are able to come out on this one here. The Bears have a lot they need to deal with and a lot they need to figure out. And I don't think that they're going to have it figure it out come going up against the 49ers today. For the next game on the list at number 5, we have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions. As I've kind of mentioned the last few weeks, I'm really not buying Nick Sirianni as a great head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. I just don't think he fits Philadelphia. And the way that this season is going, I'm having a hard time believing he's going to be here after just the end of this season. I don't really like the way he's coaching the Eagles. I don't think that he really fits the Philadelphia like way, or I don't know what you guys would call it over there in Philly, but I just don't feel like he fits Philly. Having known him from the Colts, it just does not feel like a right match. On top of that, there's kind of like some rumors swirling that the Eagles had their hat in for Deshaun Watson, which is not good for the Hurts situation, which rumors are kind of coming out that, him and the coaching staff are maybe not getting along really well. People are starting to question his leadership. There is some drama brewing in Philadelphia, and knowing Philly fans, nobody likes that in Philadelphia. You guys are business, and on top of that, it's such a shame because you guys were a Super Bowl contending team just a few years ago, and everything has fallen apart. I'm seeing people hate the fact that Wentz is gone now, and some people are even starting to say that, maybe Doug Peterson wasn't the problem. I don't know, but I am concerned about the way that this Philadelphia Eagles team is going. As for the Detroit Lions, this is kind of a bold pick here on my part. I think there's a storm brewing, and I don't mean a bad storm for the Lions fans. I think that this is probably the perfect storm for the Lions to potentially pull out their first win. They have been very competitive this year against some really good teams. Even just this past week against the Rams, they had them on the brink. I never really thought the Rams were going to lose that game, but there was a few moments early on where the Lions pulled out, forget the kitchen sink, the entire kitchen going up against the Rams, and there was a few points, when they were up 13-3, if they were just finishing those drives and not settling for field goals, that game could have very easily been 21-3, or even if you wanted to just say like 17-3, if they even were able to score on one of those two drives, they had to settle for field goals. The Lions had a good opportunity to win that game, and they've been competitive in several other games against really good teams. The Ravens are another one that comes to mind. I think that there is a perfect storm brewing where and this will be my pick as well here, I think the Lions have a shot at winning this game. I think this is the right game for them to get a W in. This will be obviously Dan Campbell's first win as a head coach in the NFL, and then on top of that, Jared Goff's first win in the NFL without Sean McVay being his head coach. So I think the storm's brewing. I'm feeling it. Lions take the W, get a big win over the Philly Eagles. For the next one, we have another divisional matchup here, a handful of divisional matchups in this week. The Titans taking on the Colts. And I think that this is a very interesting game because the last time that these two teams played, it was a complete different story. Carson Wentz was dealing with his I don't know, he was talking about his feet being in the mud, the sprained ankles and everything. He was not quite that in the position he is now health-wise. On top of that, though, you also had some missing pieces on the offense for the Titans. When you look at Tennessee, and I think I've been complimenting them week in and week out since they've kind of gotten everyone back together here, the quartet of Jones, Brown, Henry, and Tannehill is an absolute monster over there in Tennessee. When everyone's healthy, playing behind the offensive line that they have there in Tennessee, which is a pretty good one at that, they can throw punches with the best of everybody. I mean, they took down the Chiefs. They got a big win over the Buffalo Bills. This Tennessee Titans team, they're looking legit. And I think that, they slipped early in the year. They had a tough loss to the Jets. I saw the memes going around. Everyone was like, in the entire month of October, the Titans were able to lose to the Jets, beat the Chiefs, and then beat the Bills. Hilarious. Yes, I get it. But when you look at where they were going up against the Jets, they had a lot of injuries they were dealing with. Now that the entire core skill positional players are in there, this is a totally different team and one that is a big threat to win this AFC South division, and also a team that I think, if stays healthy, is a threat to make a serious run going into the playoffs. On the other side, you have the Colts, who are kind of in the same boat here, dealing with a lot of injuries. They're trying to get healthy, and as more time goes on, the team's starting to look better and better. They had a few tough losses earlier in the year. This is one that, again, another one that I have written in my notes here. Pick it on the show as I'm recording it. I'm having a really hard time setting my Colts fandom aside here and saying, all right, maybe the Colts will lose this game, when I want to just be like, no, this is a game that I think the Colts can win. But ultimately, when it comes down to who I think is going to win this game, I'm going to go with, what is my gut feeling telling me? I've been having a hard time going with my gut this year. I usually second guess it, and then it costs me games. My gut feeling says that the Colts are able to pull out a win on this one. Tennessee got them earlier this year in Tennessee. This one's in Indianapolis. I'm going to go with the home team on this one. Less about me being a fan of the Colts and more about predicting a team that's playing at home, that's playing better than they have since the beginning of the season. I'm going to go with Indianapolis. I think it's going to be a tight one, and I could very easily be wrong. I think that the game's going to be close, but the biggest thing that's going to matter here for the Colts coming out on top is being able to stop Derrick Henry. I think historically Henry has run all over the Colts. I have watched him terrorize our defenses every single year. So if they're going to win this game, I think that they really need to focus on stopping that run game and forcing Tannehill to pass, which he's been one of the better passers since he's been in Tennessee. So I don't even know if that's the right answer because they have Jones and Brown. So it'll be a tough test. I think the Colts might be able to squeak out a win, though. For the next game, number 7 on my list, we have the Bengals going up against the New York Jets in New York. This is a game that, for the Bengals, is a trap game, like I mentioned, for the Bills with the Dolphins here. This is a team that they are on a hot streak. They just completely blew out a division rival in the Baltimore Ravens. They are looking as good as anybody else in the AFC, with the best record in the AFC at that. I am all for what the Bengals are doing. The Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection just continues to impress week in and week out. Their defense shows up and shows out, and they are able to shut down the best offenses in the league. They did something to the Ravens that not a lot of teams have been able to do, and just the way they slowed down that offense and kept them just like grasping at straws, trying to make anything happen. I even picked the Ravens to win that game last week, and I just remember watching them, I'm like, all right, this is the drive. But no, the Bengals just kept getting stops and kept scoring. They're going up against a team that just got blown out in the Jets. They don't have Zach Wilson for this game. They're dealing with a few other injuries. The roster is young. It's inexperienced, and it's not a great roster at that. I'm going to go with the Bengals on this one. I would have a hard time believing that the Jets come out of it with a win on this one. Yes, it's in New York, but the Bengals are on such a hot streak. But again, this is a trap game. I hope they're not looking ahead, because it's very easy to lose to a team like this when you're worried about who's coming up after them. I expect the Bengals to win this game. as long as they are not looking ahead to the next week and let themselves get caught slipping up here. For the next game, we have the LA Rams going up against the Houston Texans here. So, again, another trap game type deal. The Rams, they're playing well. They had a pretty tight game against the Lions until they kind of pulled away at the end there, but a tight one nonetheless. The Lions really played them and played them well. But this is a Houston team that they just got rid of Mark Ingram, and it seems like they're just kind of selling off players at this point, trying to get as much capital as they can for the draft this year. At this point, I don't really expect the Texans to be winning too many more games this season. It seems like they're kind of at the point where they realize, all right, it's time to just kind of let everything go that we can and get what we can and build towards next year and the years afterwards. I'm going to go with the Rams on this one. Davis Mills is going up against the best D lineman in the league, again, and also one of the best corners, if not arguably the best corner in the league, in Ramsey as well. He is kind of in an impossible situation where I just don't really see things going too well for him. This Rams defense, a good example would be them going up against the Giants a few weeks ago when they were dealing with a litany of injuries. This roster is probably not even as good as that one. So there is going to be quite a shellacking going on in Houston, and it's not going to be by the Texans, I'll say that. For the next game, number 9, we have the Patriots going to LA. This is a tough one to decide for me, and this is another one that I'm picking right off the top, right in front of you guys here. I don't have a winner written down for this one. When you look at both of these teams, the Chargers coming off a bye week, they got blown out by the Ravens the week prior, so they got humbled quickly. A lot of people were saying that this was the best team in the AFC, and I was one of those people that was definitely putting them very high up in my power rankings. But after watching them get slapped around by the Ravens and seeing how bad that run defense actually is, which they are ranked 31st in the league in per game average, there's a little bit of a humbling there. However, despite the fact that, we have a second-year QB in Herbert, who's in his first year of a new system, and then a rookie head coach, I love what Staley has done with the Chargers there offensively. I'm a big fan of Herbert. I loved watching him light it up last year and watching him go this year as well. He's been just as impressive, if not more. I'm not too worried about the Chargers, more so as I'm just worried about that run defense, because their passing defense is really good. I think they're 4th best in the league per game average, I want to say. I believe that was the number. I don't think I wrote it down in my notes, but I'm almost positive I remember seeing that. So while they can't stop the run, they can frustrate the pass. The Patriots, the way I see this, if they are going to win this game, and the way I could see Belichick attacking them, is they're going to go with a lot of heavy set formations. This is like the game that Bill Belichick loves. He loves old school football. He loves defensive football. He believes in running the football. There's a reason he runs 2 tight end sets as much as he does. They brought in Henry. They brought in Jonnu Smith. So this is kind of the game that you would expect the Patriots to go into, and they're going to run it down somebody's throat. And when you're going against a 32nd ranked defense, this is the game where we're going to see Bill Belichick go back to that more old school style of football that he was kind of known for doing, especially in Brady's earlier years. So I expect a lot of heavy set formations. You're going to see, I'm sure that there's going to be a fullback in there, and if it's not a fullback, it's going to be like Jonnu Smith or somebody playing the fullback position. And I expect a lot of running from the Patriots to take advantage of that struggling run defense. As for the actual winner of this game, this is a tough one because it's in LA, but part of me feels like Belichick is going to be able to kind of have his way with a rookie head coach and a second-year QB. And it's been a long time since the Patriots slapped the Chargers around last year in December. However, they went into LA last year and they got the win. I don't think it's going to be the blowout that it was last year, but I think I'm going to go with the Patriots for the win on this one. I think it's going to be close within 2 possessions. I'm a little bit more confident in Bill Belichick as a coach and just how well he plays his teams against younger quarterbacks, especially rookies and second-year guys. He has a really good record against them. Most really young quarterbacks struggle against the defenses that Bill Belichick can throw at them because his stuff is so complicated and so well drawn up. I have a feeling that despite how aggressive and sexy of an offense that Staley runs, I don't think it's going to be enough to be able to thwart Bill Belichick and whatever he plans on doing for his defense. And then, like I said, if the Patriots have any game plan going into this one, they are going to run it down the Chargers' throats. And with how accurate and how good of a passer Mac Jones has shown himself to be so far this year, I think he's going to be a really good complement as long as he protects the football, doesn't turn it over, and just makes smart, accurate, short throws. You don't need to play too crazy with this pass defense because it's pretty good in LA, but that run defense, I think, is going to be a big gaping hole for the Patriots to take advantage of. For the next game, we're looking at the Jaguars at the Seahawks, and Russell Wilson is going to play, which is going to be a much-needed boost for this Seattle team that, just barely lost a game, surprisingly, to the Saints. When I picked out that game, I expected for Seattle to struggle more, but they didn't. Their defense was able to hold on pretty effectively, which is good because this has been a defense that has kind of struggled and been like a sand sieve for a lot of teams to just kind of, dink and dunk the ball all over them and do whatever they want realistically, and running the football against them as well. They're going up against a Jacksonville team that, while the passing game hasn't been uber impressive, the running game has. And with Seattle's 30th ranked run defense, I think that this is going to be an issue. It's going to give them somewhat of a challenge, and I firmly believe that. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars have shown some slow and steady progression week in and week out. They're obviously coming off of a bye week, and then the week prior to that, they got their big first win for Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence against the Miami Dolphins. But as for a winner in this one, like I said, I think it's really going to boil down to how well the Seattle Seahawks can defend the Jaguars' run, because I think the Jaguars' run game is a good thing for them to lean on and prevent Trevor Lawrence from, forcing any turnovers, things like that, especially going against a team like the Seahawks who have struggled. But I think this game comes down to how well the Seahawks can contain that, and I ultimately think that they, with Russell Wilson coming back and just kind of how he has the air he has shown around the team, he is excited to be back. I think that the hype is going to be real in Seattle, and I think that the 12s are going to be right behind him, cheering him away as he makes his way back onto the field, and I think this is going to be a good one for Seattle, and I'm going to pick the Seahawks for the W here. Go with the home team when you're unsure, and I think that the Seahawks on this one will get the win. For my next game, Washington football team and the Denver Broncos. Now, this is like a game of two teams that have really disappointed me this year because, one, the Broncos have a great defense, and two, Washington was supposed to have a great defense. Obviously, Washington's in a tough spot because they have Heineke starting for them, and I don't want to knock Heineke, but, some games he looks really good, some games he doesn't. He is very uneven, and they were supposed to have Ryan Fitzpatrick playing for them at the quarterback position, which I think would have made this offense a little bit better. But then you have the Broncos team who they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. You have a quarterback that was supposed to be the starter because of how well he protects the football, and then 2 weeks ago had 4 turnovers. So, there is a lot of question marks on both sides of the football for both of these teams here. Is Heineke going to be able to get together a good game against a Broncos defense that has done pretty well and has done the best they could despite the lack of offense that they've had on the other side of the football? And then is Washington's defense, are they going to be able to take advantage of the struggling offense that the Denver Broncos have put on the field? I don't really know who could honestly come out on top in this game and have I don't think anyone could really come out and say that they have a definitive winner for this game. And if you do, I would like to know what you're looking at that makes you feel that way, because this one is a very close call game. And from the betting that I've seen, it seems pretty close as well. But I think ultimately, as good as the Broncos defense has been, they have played so well, and just their offense cannot help them out. I have seen Taylor Heineke move this offense around and move it around really effectively. If the Broncos defense starts to get gassed just because that offense keeps going off the field and there's turnovers or they just can't move the football at all, I ultimately see Washington pulling out the win in this one. I think that the defense can probably put together a really solid game. And Washington could realistically win this game with 21 points, and that's all they really need against a really solid Broncos defense. So I think that Washington's able to get those 21, and we just watched the Broncos not be able to put up even more than 14 points last week against Cleveland, and they didn't even have their starting quarterback playing for them. So I'm going to go with Washington. I think they're probably the best bet for that win. I like just how the matchup looks in favor of Washington, despite the fact that it's in Denver. For game number 12, I think there's a lot going into this one. We have the Buccaneers taking on the Saints in New Orleans. Obviously, if you've watched any sort of football last year, we watched during the regular season, the Saints absolutely smack around the Buccaneers. Obviously, when playoff time came around, looked a little bit different. Things did not pan out the same way. The Buccaneers made it to the Super Bowl, a la Super Bowl, 7th ring for Brady, first Super Bowl since the 2000 team, and blah, blah, blah. Or 2001 team. I don't remember what year it was. The Buccaneers won. Sorry, Buccaneers fans. But I think that when you look at like what happened with the Saints last week, and this is something that's kind of been a conversation before, and you can even look back to like their big win over the Green Bay Packers. The Saints have had some offensive troubles. Jameis Winston is kind of looking like Jameis Winston, where he goes for like throwing an interception and then a 75-yard touchdown the next play. He did that just a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was even last week. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you're getting kind of the Jameis Winston that you knew was kind of there. I was a little bit more hyped up with him because of the whole, I got the LASIK thing. I couldn't see as well. And I thought maybe that would help him out. And granted, I think he is playing better despite his numbers not being as like exasperated because he's not playing in Bruce Arians' offense anymore. But I think that Jameis Winston has been playing a little bit smarter football. Ultimately, though, there are some concerns. You went up against the Seahawks defense last week that, with Geno Smith playing at quarterback, did not get much help from the offense, and you weren't really able to capitalize it. And the Seahawks have not been great stopping the run. They haven't really been too great stopping the pass, and I'm just a little bit concerned as to what's going on there. You have so many solid pieces, while granted, like Michael Thomas isn't there playing for you. You still have Alvin Kamara. They did bring in Mark Ingram, which should really help open things up for the run game there. And I'm excited to see how that goes back together, because the Mark Ingram-Alvin Kamara tandem was awesome when they were playing together the first time around. So I'm like half concerned, half not about them. The defense has been fine, but when you look at what Tampa Bay has been doing, they are dropping I think the average is 32 points a game or some number close to that. And their defense, it feels like, is getting better and better and better week after week after week. I'm just having a hard time believing that the Saints are going to be able to come out winners on this one. And if I'm going to pick a winner for this game, I'm going to pick the Buccaneers. Brady is on an MVP run right now. The offense has just been so explosive, and they haven't had Rob Gronkowski at that. And then you just look at the defense, and as it continues to get better week in and week out, they're starting to suffocate teams more, preventing them from really doing anything, getting after the quarterback effectively as their corners start to come back from all the various injuries they were dealing with earlier on in the first few weeks of the year. The team just looks good. They're poised for a Super Bowl run, and I have a feeling that run is going to go right through New Orleans and a big fat W for the Buccaneers. For this next one, this is game number 13 on the list of 14. This is the Sunday night game where we have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Now, for this one, I do have an asterisk on my winner. We'll talk about that in a second. But it sounds like Dak Prescott's going to be a game-time decision for the team. I was expecting him to not end up playing because it sounded like, I think his name's, is it Cooper Rush? Tell me if I'm wrong, Dallas fans. I'm pretty sure it's Cooper Rush. He was like, it sounded like a lot of people were expecting him to be the starter for the game, but now it's looking like it's a game-time decision. And if Dak Prescott is able to play, that really changes like the entire outlook of this game. And so it's kind of hard for me to pick a winner for this when that's hanging over the game, because when the starting quarterback of a team is game time decision, that kind of alters how you look at the game. With Dak Prescott on the field, one of the best offenses in the league. The defense, I'm still holding out on. I think it's still suspect. While they are forcing a lot of turnovers, the majority are coming from Trayvon Diggs, who also spends the other half of his plays getting burned. This team will, and the way they win this game will boil down to who's starting at quarterback. And I think if Dak Prescott is in, there's a strong opportunity there. When you look at what the Vikings are doing, the offense has looked really good. Kirk Cousins is having like a low-key, really good season so far. And I think because I don't know if Minnesota just doesn't get the media attention because obviously the record's not great or whatever, but I mean, Kirk Cousins is having a really solid season. The offense is really starting to catch on and play at the pace I was kind of expecting them to. It's just that defense that continues to give them problems, albeit not as bad as last year. They are improving, but not quite where it needs to be to really put the Vikings in a position to have a playoff team. If I'm going to pick a winner for this game, and like I said, there has got to be an asterisk on this one because it really boils down to who's playing on Sunday at the quarterback position for Dallas. If the Cowboys do have Dak Prescott, I think that there's a pretty solid chance that the Cowboys are winning this game. I think that they have a head of steam going into this one. They have been playing some of the best football offensively in the league. And on top of that, the defense has done a serviceable job at times, but other games they have not looked great. But I think that they should be able to win in a shootout against Minnesota. As for if Dak Prescott is not playing, I'm going to go with the Vikings. So a little bit of an asterisk on that one. It depends on what's going on. If Dak Prescott plays, I think the Cowboys win. If he doesn't play, I think that the Vikings are going to be able to take advantage of that and going up against a quarterback who lacks a ton of experience and is not Dak Prescott. And for the 14th and final game, we have ourselves the New York Giants at the Kansas City Chiefs, which is actually another game that I have marked as pick on the show as I'm recording. So when we look at both of these teams, the Giants, who've been plagued with injuries, are slowly and steadily getting players back. The offense with Evan Ingram and Darius Slayton last week started to look a little bit better. Obviously, they're still missing Saquon Barkley, which sucks for them, but they are slowly getting pieces back, and the offense is starting to look a little bit better, which is exciting. As for the defense, there's a lot of money that got spent on that defense, and I don't want to say it's not performing to the level that it should, but I mean, they did let up only 3 points last week, but that was against the Panthers team, and their offense is an absolute mess. When you look at what Kansas City can do, I don't know if they're going to be up to the task of stopping the Kansas City offense. I know this is not quite the year for Kansas City, but they're still able to put up 30 some odd points a game if they're going up against a defense that allows it. And based off just how ineffectively I've seen the Giants move the football, if that leads to even like a somewhat similar situation to the Giants defense getting gassed, and then, you know, if Mahomes can get hot and maybe rip off a big play or two and get things rolling, this is a game that I think kind of leans a little bit more into Kansas City's favor. You're at Arrowhead Stadium at that. And again, I think I've mentioned this before. There have been a lot of turnovers coming from Patrick Mahomes, and I am well aware of that. I think he's had about 4 or 5 interceptions that were just flat out bad throws that he threw that were poor throws and ended up being picked, and it's on him. But he has like 4 picks that are just off of the hands of receivers and going into other people's hands. He's turning the ball over. Yes, he has a few fumbles as well. But there has been a lot of weird stuff going on. I don't know if I buy the whole Kansas City is dead thing that some people are trying to like honk their horns about and try to get clicks for. I don't want to go that far. I think if they can protect the football, if Mahomes can maybe rely a little bit less on his, his like no look and, the way he kind of plays quarterback, and just focus on fundamentals, make good throws, keep the chains moving. Don't always try to make the big play every single play. This is a game that I think Kansas City can come out and win, and I think I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think I just kind of talked myself into it. I think that ultimately the Kansas City's defense has not been great, but you are going up against a Giants offense that is not at full force, and they still are dealing with some injuries. I think they can take advantage of that. You still have some solid leadership over on that defense that I think can maybe rally around the struggles that they've had and pull out a big win over there in Arrowhead for them, because if the Chiefs don't win this game, at that point, you kind of have to look at them and say, all right, this is probably not going to be their season, and I would be shocked if they were able to even make a playoff run with the problems that they've been having. But this is a must-win game for them. If the Chiefs don't come out the winners here, I think they're right out of the playoff race at that point, because the AFC West is looking pretty good. The AFC North might send 3 teams to the playoffs, and I have a hard time believing that they're going to find their way in behind a 4-2 Chargers team and a 5-2 Raiders team right now. It's just not looking too hot for the Chiefs, especially if they don't get a win. So I think that backs against the wall, pressure's on, they still want to be able to make it in the playoffs. I think the Chiefs can get it done. But that is my picks for all of Week 8. That one was a long one. We had 14 games on this one, much longer than what it has been. 38 minutes in, but we are done. I would love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Who do you think is going to come out winners this week? What am I missing? Who am I getting right? Who am I getting wrong? As always, I'm Athan Hristodulu. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you tomorrow for a weekly recap of all 13 of these games today. Have a good rest of your Sunday, everybody, and enjoy some football.